Crater Lake is striking, but we were more captivated by the mice in our RV.
You're listening to Travel FOMO, a podcast for people self-diagnosed with wanderlust.
Welcome to the Travel FOMO podcast. We are in season 9, and for us, it is all about learning how to RV, and we are doing that really hard by taking on a couple of adventures. In this episode, we are boondocking and getting rid of mice, and the person who loves all kinds of nature, especially mice, that I had with me on this adventure was my wife, Hillary.
Oh my gosh, the sarcasm is thick there. Oh my gosh. My background with mice is not good, so it just got amped up in this episode for sure.
Well, if you've been listening to the last few episodes where we were in Olympic National Park, where we first found mice, and then we went on to the Columbia River Gorge, made our way to Crater Lake, now you really get to find out what happened with the mice. Because we thought we were rid of them, but we were not.
Nope.
A couple things that we found out about Crater Lake, if you've never been there, it's a very beautiful, beautiful place. It's very striking. The water is so blue.
Yeah.
And just kind of takes your breath away. And it's one of those parks where there is one focal point, and that's what the whole thing's about. And everywhere you go, it's about looking at that thing.
Yep.
And Crater Lake is definitely that way.
Yes.
It is the deepest freshwater lake in North America and is the cleanest fresh body of water in the world. So very pure. And
that
you
really
can,
surprised me too. I was like, what?
was too.
Oh, crazy.
And yeah, it's just exactly what it says. It's this huge crater that was created when a volcano exploded. Mount Mazama exploded, creating Crater Lake. And when it did, it sent up so much ash that it could have covered the entire state of Oregon in 8 inches of volcanic ash. The
That's
entire
crazy.
state. And so made way for this massive crater that filled with water and is now this huge lake that the national parks have protected. And so we get to go see, and it really is something else.
Yeah.
We heard from a lot of people that this was their favorite national park. As we traveled, we would talk to people, and you talk about where have you been, where are you going, and a lot of people said like this was their favorite. They really liked this one.
Is it your favorite?
No, it's not my favorite.
It's not my favorite either. But it is striking, like you said. Like,
it is. And another nice thing about it too is it's smaller compares to other national parks. It is smaller in scale, so you can see all of it and you can feel really good about like checking all the boxes without having to go to a ton of effort, without having to spend a ton of time in the car. You can really see the whole thing and feel really good about it. Yeah,
exactly. Well, and we stayed in the park at a campsite that is in the Mazama Village Campground. It was actually really unique. Our campsite itself was huge, and it was basically on the edge of a cliff, like on the edge of a canyon, I guess you could say. And it was really private, except for, I will say, there was a hiking trail that did cross over along the edge of that canyon, so people could walk in front of kind of our view of the canyon, I guess you could say.
Right.
But it was still such a big camping site, it kind of didn't matter too much.
No, and that trail wasn't super busy either,
Yeah.
so only a few people ever went by.
Yeah. I personally liked it, and we never actually even hiked that trail, which that would have been a great idea. But we were busy taking care of mice and some other things, but it was a really good site. I will say it was a pull-through site, and it was the most difficult pull-through site we ever did, I think.
Oh, for sure.
The whole time we were hauling an Airstream. And if you're hauling an RV, you hear of a pull-through site and you think, oh, perfect, that's as easy as it gets.
Easy.
It could be the case, not in this case, because in this case, there were so many trees lining the little driveway, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And then there were these huge boulders that they put in place to kind of help frame out that path that then you had to like turn on a dime. It was clearly not really big enough for the rigs that they were allowing through it. It was crazy.
Yeah. I think we were right at the maximum length of what could use that site, and making that turn was impossible. So we had to like go a little ways and back up and go a little ways and back up. And honestly, looking back at it now, I would probably, this is going to sound crazy, but I probably would have gone past it and backed into it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I could see that being better.
I think it probably would have been easier than trying to pull through it, as ridiculous as that sounds.
It was so hard. Guys, so whenever we're parking the RV, we usually get out our cell phones and we talk to each other, and I'm the one standing outside the vehicle, and I'm telling him like what things look like from the outside and asking him to go slower or go left or right or whatever. And in this instance, we were out in the middle of nowhere again. The middle of nowhere, hours from anything of substance, and there's no cell phone service, so we can't even talk to each other on our cell phones. And then, so I'm like trying to yell at you over the sound of our diesel truck, and I'm standing up on these boulders to try to like make sure, like, I basically kind of put out my body and was like, just don't hit me and we'll be good and you won't have hit anything else. It was really crazy. But the other surprise that we had when we arrived is that there were no hookups. And that was just such a big deal. And how could we forget? How could we forget that we'd booked this site and there were no hookups? And we'd done it because it was the only option, the only good option for us, I think, based on the size of our rig.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, we got to do this. But that was like January 1st, and now it's like August-ish. And it's like, I can't believe that we didn't think about that. So I go in and check in and then come out and tell you like, hey, yeah, so our site's ready for us, but the reason it's ready is because there's nothing to get ready. It's just a plot of land. And in for 3 nights, too, where we hadn't exactly planned for that. Maybe hadn't have charged things and done all of the gathering water and all that, filling up the tank and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was not ideal, and they didn't really have a water fill station. Like, they had little water fountains around and like faucets, but you couldn't hook a hose to them. So if we had known, we would have put some water in the tank and this, but fortunately we carried around 5-gallon jugs with us. And so I would go like fill up a jug of water, bring it back, pour it through a funnel into the freshwater tank, and that's how we got our water. But it not ideal. Fortunately, the weather participated well, and it was cool at night, so it wasn't too bad. It was hot during the day, but so we were fine without electricity, and we got by. But it did make the showers really busy. The fact that there were no hookups, like everyone's waiting in line for showers every night.
That was wild. Like, it was always a scenario where no matter when you went, you're mostly gonna wait.
Yeah.
To like take a shower.
And there's no more awkward thing than like standing there holding your towel next to some other guy. You're just waiting, and you're like, do we talk right now? I don't feel like we should talk. We're in flip-flops and like holding bars of soap, but it's weird if we don't talk. Oh, I'm sure you did.
Because remember, I met like that couple that had just been, they had been doing not RV life, but van life in Italy for like, either they were on their way or they just gotten back. And I was like, oh my gosh, and chatted them up and was like, oh man. So, okay, what were your first impressions? of Crater Lake?
I was surprised at how like sort of deserty it was outside of it, and even in the park, like it's pretty dry.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not expecting that. I was thinking like Oregon, it's going to be all these big green trees and stuff, and there were like trees and things like that, but I didn't expect it to be as dry. And I really was shocked at just how massive it is. You
Yeah.
know, you see pictures and stuff, and you get that it's big, but when you stand on the rim and see it, like
It's so
it is
striking.
incredible.
Yeah, it's very, very pretty. Like I remember when we arrived and I got the first glimpse and I was just like, oh my gosh, like that is actually really cool.
Yeah.
But I was surprised that for a park that focuses so much on this body of water, you have such little access to it.
Right. Like it's down in this bowl, and there's really only one trail kind of on the far side from where everything else is that you can hike down to it and then hike back out. But hardly anybody does.
I don't know how many people do that, but I really thought like, wow, that would be a good idea because it could get pretty hot.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see like hiking down there. The thing that gets me is that you would hike down. It'd be a very steep hike.
Yeah.
And you'd get down there and you'd swim, and then you'd hike back up and get crazy sweaty and dusty.
Right.
Right after you'd like been swimming in the cleanest water ever, and it'd been great to go ahead and like swim that off. The irony of that I thought could be really funny, but I think that would be fun too to just swim in like the purest, cleanest body of water in the world.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty cool.
It's interesting too being at Crater Lake because every other lake that you go to that's like, hey, we're going to the lake, you expect to see a bunch of people on boats.
Right.
And
Good
even
point.
if they're not motorboats, you expect like paddle boarders and sailboats and little rowboats and things like kayaks and things like that. But there's none of that.
Right.
So it's just this lake that's just nothing.
I know.
Just nothing on it.
I think, I don't know, I'm sure it would be so hard, but I just feel like there's so much opportunity to like have a little, like some kind of little lodge or something down at the bottom where, and I get it, like you'd have to create a platform for that. And, you know, it's literally be digging into the crater to some degree, but like have some kind of lodge down there and then let people rent paddle boards and all that kind of stuff. I feel like there's so much opportunity. Even have a little gondola that will take you down. That would be like such a fun thing to do if you could get down there.
Yeah. It would be interesting. I also was surprised at how many backpackers we saw.
Oh, yeah, right?
I didn't realize that it's part of the Pacific Crest Trail. Takes you through Crater Lake.
Yeah.
And we saw a bunch of people that were hiking the PCT, and they were hanging out there in Crater Lake, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, very cool. And for people who don't know much about the Pacific Crest Trail, it stretches 2,650 miles. It goes from the Mexican to the Canadian border, and it passes through Crater Lake. There's also, because some of that trail, I think, was at the time cut off due to wildfires, I think some of them were hitchhiking and stuff. So that was just kind of interesting. I'd never imagined, like, if I was doing it, I never imagined I would have to put myself in a situation where I might have to hitchhike with somebody to continue hiking. It was a really remote, really small park as well. It was only 33 miles around the rim.
Right. And
so you can easily just drive around the rim like as many times as you want in a day. No, but seriously, it's pretty small. And it felt like a little eerie at night because it was just so freaking dark. And there's no streetlights or anything. I know at one point, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute, but we drove around the rim a little bit at night, and it was a little freaky.
Yeah, that kind of freaked me out.
Yeah, like, it's just so dark.
Yeah.
So dark. Okay, so hiking options. We did a little bit of hiking there. There's not like tons of hiking even.
No, there's not like tons and tons of trails there, but there are some, and they're like all the ones we did, I was glad that we did. Like we hiked Watchman's Peak I think it was like 1.7 miles total. So like less than a mile there and back. And there's a Watchman's Tower is up at this kind of high point. They still use it in the park system to watch for wildfires. And we hiked up there. We actually did that hike early in the morning. So we got to see sunrise,
That's nice.
the sunrise over the lake, which was really cool,
Mm-hmm.
and hiked up to Watchman's Tower. I definitely recommend that one. There's a little parking lot there that makes the hike really accessible and easy. We did Garfield Peak Trail. I think that was like 3.5 miles. It's a little bit harder, but worth it. I feel like that's probably the best view of the lake was from the end of that trail from Garfield's Peak. You see Phantom Ship out there, and you see the Watchman's Island, and all this
What if
kind of
somebody
stuff.
doesn't know what Phantom Ship is? Tell them.
So it's this little sort of outcropping in really kind of the corner of the lake, and you can only see it from certain vantage points, but especially in the evening or the morning, it looks like sails of a ship because it's this little outcropping with these trees on it. And so it looks like there's this like pirate ship down there in the lake, and it's really just this little island with some trees on it. But it's kind of cool to see, and because it's one of the only things on the lake, it makes it very recognizable and sort of stand out. But you can only see it because it's kind of tucked in this corner, so you kind of have to do one of these hikes to get to see it.
Yeah. It's not, just to clarify, like if you've seen pictures, it's not the big island in the middle of the lake.
Mm-mm.
This is something like tiny, and a lot of people tend to miss it. Yeah, and we had, with Maggie being with us and with us not having hookups, we were kind of in a scenario where we had to really time out our hikes really well because we couldn't just lock her up in the Airstream in the heat of the day. Right. We really had to like let her be in the air because, again, she still couldn't go on some of these hikes because it's national parks and wildlife and everything. Even though I'm not sure what wildlife we were considering might be out there. The lake.
Yeah. I feel like that's how ridiculous some of the national park rules are.
Oh my gosh, that was a good one. But yeah, so we did those early in the morning, and then later in the day as it got warmer, we shifted to the more dog-friendly trails so that she wouldn't be stuck in the Airstream. So some of those that we got to do was Godfrey Glen, and it's just both of these are really short. This is like a 1.2 mile hike, and it is trails of some really cool views of pinnacles, which are like these huge spiral rock that were created by the volcanic bubbles that were coming out of the earth, which is really kind of fascinating to think about.
Yeah.
And then randomly, while we were on this trail, we had this moment where we're walking and you look out across this canyon and you're like, that's our Airstream. That, right, see that little silver dot? That is our Airstream. And I was like, what? And we fortunately have binoculars because it is kind of fun to look at the lake through binoculars and stuff. And so I pull up the binoculars and I'm like, that is our freaking Airstream. That is crazy. And believe it or not, it was the only campsite you could see at all.
Yeah.
Which meant we were the only one with that incredible view on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, I knew that our campsite was really kind of special and cool just from walking around the campground and kind of seeing, but I didn't realize like how sort of exclusive it was.
Well, and then there was another trail we did called Lady of the Woods, which was really nice because it was much more shaded. I felt like than some of the others. And there's this, basically, when you go on this hike, it's less than a mile. It's you're basically looking for the lady in the woods. And there's apparently this rock. I say apparently. That's how I felt in the beginning. I was like, okay, apparently there's this rock with a lady carved in it. But then whenever you go and look, you end up really finding this big rock with a lady. It looks like a lady is crying and kind of curled over and crying on the rock. And I did point out that she was naked. And your defense for that was what?
It's art.
It's art.
It's art. It's okay because it's art.
It's nature's art. I thought that was so funny. But yeah, so anyway, the trail had been named after that rock. And I don't even know if we knew that or not whenever we started the hike. But I think we met a family along the way and they're like, oh, yeah, like there's an actual rock that you should be looking for that says that's, the Lady in the Woods. Next time, one of the hikes that I would do is the Claywood Cove Trail because it's the only trail that takes you down to the water like you were talking about where you can swim. And it's only 2 miles. I just think it would be a beating.
It would be a rough 2 miles.
Yeah, it would be a really rough 2 miles. But I would totally do it. Well, why don't you tell everyone about the guests that we had?
So boondocking, it was super quiet and super still at night. And guess what? We hear mice running around again. And they're just running all over the trailer. And so now we're like, okay.
They were getting bold too at this point.
Yeah. We're like, now it's even more of a problem. And where all the electrical wires run through a trailer like that, they're all in these tubes, and these mice were small enough to fit in these tubes. And it was just like this super highway to like take them all over the trailer instantly without having to come out in the open. Oh, it was just so bad. So we start looking and we realize like there's some areas under the Airstream where we feel like maybe they're getting in. Part of the belly pan was like sagging a little bit where some rivets had come loose, and there was some space that where our essentially the stoppers for our black and gray tanks connect to the tanks, and where there used to be rubber, but the trailer's just old, and so that rubber is now gone. And it's just space. And so we're like, man, I think that's where they're getting in. And I mean, we were like, we have to solve this problem now. Yeah. Like whatever's going to happen. And up to this point, you had been a little adamant about like, we're going to try some homeopathic remedies and stuff. and I, at this point, I was like, no, this is Operation Eradicate. If I have to sit up at night with a machine gun, I'm going to get rid of these mice. Like, I don't care.
I mean, I was glad when it was all said and done.
What has to happen? So we went to Bend, and when we were in Bend, we went to Walmart. We bought glue traps. I put them absolutely everywhere that I thought the mice could even consider going. And we also bought this little keep away system that you like plug in, and it's supposed to be a deterrent. And I was skeptical about it. But I was like, well, we'll try it. Because at this point, we'd patched up all the holes, had put mesh in where like, and so there's no way they're getting in. Right. And I was like, well, now they're just trapped in the trailer.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So we have to trap them, get them out. So glue traps everywhere. Woke up the next morning and we had caught 4 mice. But in the night, as they're getting trapped, you would hear them get trapped, and then you would just hear them like rustle around and bang around on these traps, and you would hear their little buddies come, and like, and it was driving Maggie crazy. It was driving you crazy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. No, that was not good. And it was like this series of like, several nights, because we're coming from other places. We've been in Olympic National Park where we first heard them. We have gone to Ainsworth State Park and the Columbia River Gorge where we didn't hear anything and we were hopeful. And now we've arrived here, found out the first night, we still have them, patched everything up, found out the second night, we still have them, and now we've trapped them in.
Yeah.
And then finally that third night had some traps where we like really got them.
Yeah.
You had to do it too. I was like, I cannot do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You were like, I can't handle it. You have to do it all. So we ended up catching 4 of them that one night in these glue traps. And
did you think there was another one out there somewhere?
I thought there could be like, well, one of the glue traps was just gone.
Oh, that's what it was.
And
you're
so
like,
I was
oh.
like, well, I don't know what to do about that.
Right.
Like the glue trap's just gone.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what happened there, but they must have escaped somehow and then got caught on another, because we finally got rid of the mice.
But one of the highlights, though, of being in Crater Lake area, although I will say it is truly in the middle of nowhere, but about 2 hours and 40 minutes away from there is Bend, Oregon. That's literally where we went into, quote, town. We knew we wanted to see Bend anyway, but we also needed things like mouse traps and stuff like that. And so we ended up going there for a day, and we'd heard such good things. Bend is on this river, probably a river that bends, if I had to guess. But there are a ton of outdoor activities there, including a water park that they have on the river, where they basically use the river as for the water on a water park, which I just think is really creative. And people can kayak and surf and do a bunch of different things in the natural whitewater rapids that are there. And then there are a ton of outdoor patio places, and then there's even boutiques and breweries and coffee shops, just tons of fun stuff to do. And so we thought we would make a dog-friendly day of it.
Yeah, we, again, we're boondocking, so we can't leave Maggie behind. There's no air conditioning, so she has to come with us. We'd hiked all the dog-friendly trails, go to Bend. What could be better? And we show up. We wanted to go to Bend Brewing Company for lunch, and they're dog friendly. They have all this big outdoor area with these picnic tables. We're like, it's a brewery. We'll be hanging out by the river.
This huge lawn. It was great.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like, we'll get some brewskis and some good food, and it'll be great. And we get there. We get into town. We park. We walk a few blocks to the place, and the biggest thunderstorm ever just rolls in. And right after we'd gotten some beers. Like, so we got some beers, and like, boom, this thunderstorm hits. And they've got a little tent that you could get under, but it's getting really crowded, and there's all these people and all these little kids, and the thunder and lightning is so loud. Maggie was freaking out.
Yeah, it was scary.
She was super scared. And so I was like, if I can get her back to the truck, I know that she'll be calm in the truck.
Yeah.
Because we've sat through thunderstorms with her in the truck before, and she's fine. But being out like this wasn't good. So I was like, I'll take Maggie back to the truck. You stay here. And it just starts pouring down rain.
While you're walking with her to the truck.
Trying to get back to the truck. And it's just pouring down rain. I stop at one point, like halfway between the brewery and the truck, and I'm standing on the street, like under this awning in front of this shop, and I actually filmed it. So if you go out to YouTube, you can see Maggie's soaking wet. She's so scared, but it's just pouring rain. And I was like, I don't know. I could be standing here forever. We're just going to have to do it. And so Maggie and I like run the rest of the way to the truck. I finally get her put up. Fortunately, I had a shirt and a rain jacket in the truck. I change clothes and leave Maggie and come back to like have lunch with you. But it was nuts.
It was pretty crazy. And then meanwhile, I'm there at the brewery, but I don't have seating inside because we had our dog with us.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting out at this picnic table, and it starts raining like bold, big raindrops. And you're like, oh no. And we already knew it was happening, and that's why you'd taken her to the truck. And then I'm there with 2 beers, and I end up like running under this massive tree, and it's a bunch of us just huddled. I'm huddled there with strangers, and we're trying to protect our drinks from getting rained in. And we're just making conversation. And then we're kind of like, maybe this isn't safe to be under this ginormous tree. So then we all run under this tent, which was packed full of people. There was not enough room for everybody. It was really chaotic. And it was just, it was crazy. And I felt like you went through the most trauma though, and you came back and I was like 1 beer down. I was good. It was just another adventure.
And that whole day was kind of like that. I think,
yeah,
because we tried to like do some shopping after that. We went to a coffee shop that has an outdoor space that's dog friendly. That again, like we had to take Maggie back to the truck because it started to rain. We went to another the old mill area. It's an outdoor shopping area, and it started to rain on us there. So we just like got rained on. I thought Bend was really, really cool, and I'd love to go back and experience it again. But that one day there was just like rain and rain.
It was just a miss. The irony is that when we left, things were really nice.
Yeah.
The weather was great. We actually, we took a route, kind of a more scenic route on our way back to Crater Lake, and we drove through Cascade Lakes on their scenic byway through, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but it's the Deschutes National Forest.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like 150 lakes inside this forest.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and they're all so adorable, so private too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just felt like we saw like a handful of people the whole day.
Yeah.
And we kind of spent our late afternoon, evening kind of winding through all of those lakes. We hit up Todd Lake and Devil's Lake were the two that really stood out, but we actually saw a bunch. It's really remote out there. There's even no lights on the highway. So as it started to get dark and the sun was setting, it was like, this is beautiful, until it turned like really creepy. And do you remember we were listening to the National Parks After Dark podcast?
Mm-hmm.
That really sticks with me because there were episodes, and we were literally listening to episodes about the Deschutes National Forest because we thought that'd be fun to learn about it while we're driving through it, which is something we did a lot in different national parks, and which we hope maybe you guys will listen to our podcast sometimes when you're going to some of these places. But we were doing that, and some of them, the stories got a little creepy, and like all of a sudden it was like pitch black outside, and there's like not another person on the road, and I was just like, this is actually really creepy. Shout out to Cassie and Danielle in National Parks After Dark podcast. You guys we've really spent many, many hours with you.
Yes,
I must say.
Yeah, we did. We listened to a lot of that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Really good stuff.
Well, and I remember getting back, so we did that, like you said, afternoon, evening, and by the time we got back to Crater Lake, it was dark.
Yeah.
And, there's no street lights, nothing like that, and you're really driving on the rim of this crater. And so the lake is on one side, and it's a sharp drop off on the other.
Yeah.
And when you go around a corner, your headlights just shine out into like nothing.
Yeah. And there's no rails or anything in a lot of places.
Yeah. It's like road and then like off the side of the mountain.
Yeah. It's
like
just, there's
right
too
there.
much road for them to like put rails around it all.
Yeah. And it was kind of freaky to drive at night. Like it was probably scarier to drive at night than to like pull the trailer on it during the day.
Yeah.
But it was really, really kind of eerie and creepy.
Do you remember, like, as we go down, because you drive we drove around the rim, and then also to get to our campground, we had to drive down and down this like crazy switchback road.
Mm-hmm.
And during the day, it was like pretty stressful just to make those switchbacks in the Airstream. And then doing it at night, even without the RV, was like, oh, this is like kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And I throw that out there because if you are RVing and you're going to go to this campground, you should also know about that road and kind of mentally prepare yourself for that road, and also mentally prepare yourself not to arrive at dark.
Right. Yeah.
For sure.
You definitely want to get there when it's light out.
Yeah.
What I remember most is you and your fear of the mice that we were about to trap, and just like dousing our entire bedroom area with peppermint oil and making it like we were sleeping inside a candy cane.
I had kind of forgotten that. I remember using peppermint oil later for the ants that we would like have whenever we went to beachy places. There would always be ants like in some of those campgrounds. But I had forgotten that I'd also tried to use it to keep the mice out. Yeah. Which was actually a recommendation by one of our YouTube listeners. I can't remember who that was, but they were like, peppermint oil. Use the peppermint oil. I was like, oh, that's good. Oh, man. Okay, so overall, like, Crater National Park, it feels very untouched because you can't touch the lake, pretty much. It feels like almost out of reach when I stop and think about it. It's kind of crazy.
It is really a unique experience to get to see a lake that pretty, that doesn't have anything on it. There's no docks out on it. There's no boats out on it and nothing like that. And it makes you feel like you're seeing something the way it's always been.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked that part of it. It's a small park, and I like that too. Like you get to kind of see it all without having to go to a ton of effort.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, next up we have the Redwoods in California. I'm so excited. This is like such a beautiful place.
Yeah.
It's almost otherworldly.
It really kind of is, especially if you grew up like we did in the plains.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just so different. The size of the trees and forests like that and being right by the ocean and just all the stuff, the weather and the fog and all of it is just so different.
Yeah.
Than anything that we were used to, and so cool to see. Well, between now and when the next episode comes out, you can connect with us via social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and then of course the YouTube channel where you can go see a lot of the images of the hikes and of course Crater Lake, as well as the thunderstorm in Bend. So go check all that out on YouTube and connect with us on social media. That's where we'll post kind of what's going on, and an easy way to just keep track of us.
That's right. And you can also reach out to us by email. We have travelfomopodcast@gmail.com. That is where we would love to hear from you. If you've got travel stories you want to share, we would love to share them here. If you guys have been to Crater Lake, and you loved it and we missed something, you should totally tell us about it. Let us know so we can let other listeners know. And it's just a great way to share more information with other people. So hit us up at travelfomopodcast@gmail.com.
Can't wait to hear from you.
Yeah. Okay, guys, that is a wrap for this episode. We will catch you on the flip side, I guess. Okay, guys, life is short.
Water well.